I was on the ground, crying out for help, but Karen just stood there, sipping her coffee like I was a nuisance. I was just trying to enjoy the morning. That's all I wanted. My little porch chair had always been my quiet place, the one spot I could sit, sip my tea, and pretend the world was a little gentler than it really is. It had rained the night before. The wooden boards of my porch were still a little damp, but I didn't think much of it. I sat like I always do, rocking gently, breathing in the air, trying to calm my nerves before another day of physical therapy. I've been recovering from back surgery, so every movement is careful, every stretch planned. I don't take risks. I can't afford to. And then it happened. The back leg of my chair must have caught on something slick, or maybe the wood gave way slightly. I don't know. But in a flash, the whole thing tipped. I felt my body twist and fall sideways, the sudden snap of pain slicing through my lower back before I even hit the floor. I screamed. Not loud, not dramatic. Just a sharp cry, more out of shock than anything. But it echoed in the quiet cul-de-sac. I hit the ground hard, my shoulder scraping against the rough wood. My spine lit up with pain like someone had poured fire straight into my bones. And I couldn't move. Not without crying out again. Not without feeling like something inside me might snap in two. That's when I saw her. Karen. She was right across the street, standing at the end of her driveway in her robe, holding her ridiculous oversized coffee mug with some snarky quote on it. She saw everything. Her eyes locked on mine. Just for a second. I thought, thank God. She'll help me. I tried to raise my hand. My arm trembled in the air as I whimpered, please, I need help. And she just stared. No rush in her steps, no concern in her eyes, just that bored, blank expression like I was ruining her peaceful morning. Like I was the inconvenience. I could feel the tears already forming, not just from the pain, but from the humiliation. I was lying there on the floor like some helpless fool, and the one person who could help wouldn't. Karen turned her head. She took another sip from her mug, and then she just started walking back up her driveway. I called again, louder. This time, please! I fell. I can't get up. Nothing. She paused for a second at her door, glanced back at me, and then disappeared inside. And that's when I started to cry. Not like sobbing, not out loud, but the kind of crying that comes when you're too stunned, too hurt, too embarrassed to scream. I felt the tears slide down the side of my face and into the cracks of the porch boards. I laid there for what felt like an eternity, listening to the faint chirp of birds and the occasional bark from someone's dog. No one else came. A few blinds moved in the neighboring windows. I knew people saw. I knew they did. But no one came. No one opened their doors. I wasn't just in pain. I was invisible. I tried to roll, to shift myself upright, but the pain made my vision go white. I bit down on my lip to keep from yelling. Again. My phone was inside the house, just 10 feet away, behind a door I couldn't reach. And Karen? She was probably back in her kitchen, scrolling through Facebook, pretending she hadn't just watched a neighbor crumple like a broken doll. Never thought it would feel like this, to be abandoned. I've had bad days. But this was something else. There's a special kind of ache that comes not just from injury, but from the realization that people just don't care. I lay there, blinking up at the sky, wondering how long it would take before someone did something, wondering how long it would take before I passed out. Then I heard it, the screech of tires pulling into my driveway. My son. He had been dropping off groceries, a weekly routine since my surgery. He wasn't supposed to arrive for another hour, but thank God he came early. The look on his face when he saw me lying there. I'll never forget it. He ran. I could hear his footsteps thunder across the porch like an earthquake. He dropped everything and collapsed beside me, hands trembling as he touched my shoulder and asked what happened, and when I told him, when I said Karen saw it happen and walked away, his entire expression changed. His jaw clenched, his eyes narrowed, and he looked across the street like he wanted to burn the whole house down. But I stopped him. Not now. Not yet. Right then, I just needed help. He gently helped me up, careful with every movement, tears welling in his eyes as he apologized for not being there sooner, even though it wasn't his fault. None of this was. But Karen? She made a choice, and I'll never forget it. At first, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Lying there on the porch, tears streaking down my face, I told myself, maybe she didn't hear me. Maybe she's just going inside to get her phone. Maybe she'll come back out with help. I clung to that hope like a lifeline, like it would somehow erase the sting of watching someone walk away from me while I was helpless. The idea that someone, anyone, could be that cold. It just didn't make sense. Not even for Karen. But then, I remembered. When I called out to her, when I cried for help, she looked right at me. Not a glance. Not a quick, distracted look. I mean, she stared. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a split second, I saw something that didn't feel like shock or confusion or concern. It was annoyance, like I was a fly buzzing too close to her lemonade. She heard me. She knew, and she still walked away. I remember every second of it, her fuzzy slippers scraping across her concrete driveway, the way she paused at the door, coffee, mug still steaming in her hand, and turned back to look one last time. And then, she rolled her eyes. She actually rolled her eyes at me, like I was being dramatic. Like the fact that I was shaking on the porch, trying not to scream from pain, was some kind of neighborhood inconvenience. That's when something in me snapped. Not physically, I couldn't move an inch, but emotionally. It wasn't just pain anymore. It was shame. Like I wasn't even worthy of help. Do you know what it feels like to cry out for someone and have them look you dead in the face and choose to do nothing? It's like watching a door slam shut in slow motion. Only the door is someone's soul, and Karen's. Her soul was locked up tighter than a bank vault. I started whispering to myself, not because I was losing it, but because I needed to hear something. Anything. My own voice was all I had. I kept mumbling things like, maybe she didn't understand. I was hurt. Maybe she thought I was joking. Maybe she'll come back in a minute. But every lie I told myself just made the silence louder. I kept hoping a neighbor would come out. Mr. Delgado from 2 doors down usually walks his dog early. Or the Wilson kids, always late for school. Maybe they'd run out the front and see me. But nothing. Just the buzz of a lawnmower somewhere far off and the occasional crow overhead. I remember looking up at the clouds and thinking, is this really what my life has come to? Lying here like trash someone forgot to pick up? And across the street, Karen's curtain moved. That's right. She was watching me from inside her house. I saw her face peek through that little slit between the blinds. It wasn't curiosity, it wasn't guilt. It was just blank, like she was checking to see if I was still there, still broken, still pitiful. And then the curtain dropped again. That crushed whatever hope I had left. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't ignored by mistake. Was ignored on purpose. You'd think that moment would make me angry. You'd think the rage would come flooding in, strong enough to push past the pain, to make me want to scream at her window and curse her name. But it didn't. I just felt small. I felt like a burden to my neighbors, like a pathetic figure taking up space in a world that had already decided I wasn't worth the trouble. The porch boards beneath me felt harder somehow, like they were rejecting me too. Every breath I took felt heavier, like the whole neighborhood was pressing down on my chest. It's crazy how quickly dignity can drain out of you. One moment, you're sipping tea on your porch. The next, you're too broken to stand, too ashamed to cry loud enough for help. And the worst part? It's not just that she didn't help, it's that she didn't care. Eventually, my son found me. Thank God for that. But even as he gently helped me into the house, I couldn't stop replaying her face in my mind. The blank stare. The eye roll. The curtain falling shut. He kept asking what happened, over and over. But I couldn't bring myself to say it at first. How do you explain something like that? How do you say, I needed someone, and she looked at me like I was dirt? But when I finally told him, his hands balled into fists, his face turned red with fury. She saw you and just walked away? He couldn't believe it. I nodded. He stormed toward the front door like he was ready to go over there and break it down. I had to raise my voice to stop him, and it hurt like hell to even try. Don't, please. Not right now, I whispered. Just stay here. Please. He stopped, but I could see the rage simmering just under his skin. Someone's going to hear about this, he muttered. I don't care what HOA rules are. You don't leave a person lying in the dirt. But I knew the truth. Karen would deny everything. She'd smile that fake plastic smile and say she didn't see me. She'd call me confused, or worse, dramatic. And some people? They'd believe her. Because that's how this place works. I was the quiet one. The one recovering. The one who didn't go to board meetings or walk dogs or make waves. Karen, though? She was on the HOA board. She played tennis with half the neighborhood. She organized bake sales and hosted book club nights. People liked her. They didn't see the side I saw. They didn't see the woman who looked at a suffering neighbor and said, "Not my problem." But they would. They absolutely would. I didn't think it could hurt worse than it already did. But the next day, it did. Physically, I was sore. Every muscle ached. My shoulder was bruised. My back felt like it was stitched together with barbed wire. And my pride? That was completely shattered. I didn't sleep much that night. Not because of the pain, though that was bad enough, but because I couldn't stop hearing Karen's voice in my head, or more accurately, her lack of one, until the next morning. She came out again. Same robe, same smug mug, same stone-cold face. But this time, my son was with me. He hadn't left my side since it happened. He insisted on sleeping on the couch, just in case I needed anything. When he saw her stroll out like nothing happened, like she hadn't left his mom helpless on the porch, he stood up and marched across the lawn before I could say a word. Didn't yell. He didn't cuss. But he was mad. Quiet mad. The kind of calm that comes right before a storm. "Hey," he said. "You saw my mom fall yesterday." Karen raised an eyebrow, like she was being inconvenienced by someone knocking on her door during a commercial break. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied flatly. "Yes, you do," he said, taking another step toward her. "She called out to you. You looked at her. You walked away." Karen sighed and took a sip of her coffee, not even pretending to be sorry. "Look," she said, "I'm not a nurse. I didn't know what was wrong with her. I figured she'd get up." "You figured?" he repeated. "You saw her on the ground and you figured she'd just… what? Walk it off?" "She's not my responsibility," Karen snapped, her tone cold and clipped. "You think I'm just supposed to go running every time someone stubs their toe?" That was the moment. Those words, "You're not my responsibility." She said it like it was a legal statement, like she was absolving herself of all guilt because technically no one could force her to help. But this wasn't about legal. It was about being human. My son stared at her like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. And honestly, neither could I. I was listening from the porch, too weak to walk over but too invested to stay inside. And when I heard those words come out of her mouth, I felt something twist in my chest. Not just sadness this time, but real, searing anger. She knew what she'd done. She wasn't confused. She wasn't scared. She had made a choice. And now, instead of owning up to it, she was hiding behind the excuse that I wasn't her problem. I guess that's all I was to her. An inconvenient neighbor. A sad little scene she didn't want to deal with. My son, still doing everything in his power to keep calm, said, "You left a person lying on the ground. You think that's okay?" Karen just shrugged. "I mind my business," she said. "Maybe you and your mother should learn to do the same." And then she turned around and walked right back inside, just like the day before. Only this time, she left both of us standing there, stunned and furious. My son came back over to me, breathing heavy, shaking his head. "I should report her," he muttered. "I should blast her name everywhere. Facebook, next door, HOA meetings. Everyone needs to know." I didn't stop him this time. I couldn't. Because he was right. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about what kind of community we lived in. What kind of people we were living next to. And Karen, she had made it perfectly clear what kind of person she was. Later that afternoon, I got a knock on the door. For a split second, I thought maybe, it was Karen coming to apologize. It wasn't. It was her friend, Gail. Another HOA board member. She stood there holding a flyer about some upcoming community picnic and gave me this weird, forced smile. "Hi, just wanted to drop this off," she said. Karen mentioned there was some kind of misunderstanding? Misunderstanding? My blood ran cold. Karen watched me fall and didn't help, I said, voice trembling. There was no misunderstanding. Gail shifted awkwardly. She said she didn't realize you were hurt, that you were already getting help. I almost laughed. Almost. Is that what she told you? I asked, trying to keep my voice from cracking. Gail didn't answer. She just gave me a tight smile and said, "Hope to see you at the picnic," before walking off. It was all damage. Control. Karen wasn't sorry. She was just trying to get ahead of the story. But the thing is, word had already started to spread. My son had posted about what happened. Not in some rage-fueled rant, but a calm, detailed account. No names. Just facts, and the comments came pouring in. "That's disgusting. What kind of neighbor walks away from someone crying out for help? I know who this is. I've seen her do this before. She shouldn't be on the HOA board if that's how she treats people." People started messaging privately too. A few said they weren't surprised, that Karen had a history of being cold, of only caring about HOA rules and appearances, not people. One woman even wrote, "She once called security on my teenage daughter for looking suspicious." Suddenly, I wasn't alone. But that didn't take away what happened. That didn't erase the fact that when I needed someone, the only person who could help decided I wasn't her problem. And she said it to our faces. That night, as I sat on the couch, my son beside me, I kept replaying. Her words, not my responsibility. I said them out loud, and each time they felt heavier. More cruel, more permanent. I wasn't asking her to carry me across a battlefield. I wasn't demanding her life savings or begging for a miracle. I just needed someone to care enough to try. Instead, I got a shrug, a turn back, and a door slammed shut. I don't remember the exact moment I hit the ground. It happened so fast. 1 second I was reaching for the railing, and the next, the world was sideways. My chair tipped, too far forward, and my arm gave out. My body slammed against the porch. Floor, ribs first, then shoulder, then hip. I heard a crack. I wasn't sure if it was wood or bone. Then everything went white with pain. I must have blacked out for a few seconds. When I came to, I couldn't move. My leg felt twisted. My shoulder was throbbing. I couldn't catch a full breath without wincing. It felt like all the air had been punched out of my lungs, and I was just lying there, like some discarded doll. And then the fear hit, because I was alone. Truly alone. I remember the sun beating down on my face, the porch planks hot beneath me, the taste of metal in my mouth where I'd bitten my lip. I tried to call out, but the words came out weak, broken. Help. Please. Help! That's when I saw her, Karen, standing in her driveway across the street. She had her phone in one hand and her mug in the other, just standing there like she was watching birds. I called again. This time louder. "Karen, please, I need help." She looked up. We locked eyes. I remember thinking, thank God. She sees me. She'll come over. Everything's going to be okay. But then she frowned, tilted her head like I was an inconvenience, then slowly turned around and walked back into her house. The door clicked shut, and I was still on the ground. I don't know how long I lay there after that. Minutes, maybe more. Time didn't work right in that moment. The pain made everything blurry. I just remember staring at the sidewalk cracks and thinking, is this how I die? On my porch, in broad daylight, with my neighbor watching and doing nothing? Then, through the ringing in my ears, I heard a voice. My son's voice. "Mom? Mom?" He had come back early. He'd forgotten his phone charger or something small like that. I don't even care why. All I know is that he showed up just in time. I tried to answer him but couldn't. He found me slumped, my arm twisted underneath me, my face pale and wet with sweat. I'll never forget the look in his eyes, the sheer panic, the heartbreak. "Mom, what happened? Oh my God, who did this?" He dropped to his knees and gently touched my face. "I'm calling an ambulance," he said, his voice shaking. Don't move, okay? Just don't move. Even as the sirens wailed in the distance, even as the paramedics gently lifted me onto a stretcher, all I could think about was her. Karen saw me. She knew. And she chose to walk away. At the hospital, they told me I had a fractured collarbone and a dislocated shoulder. My hip had deep bruising, but no break, thank God. They kept me overnight for observation, mostly due to my age and the fall's severity. But honestly, the physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional hurt. When my son asked how long I'd been on the ground before he found me, I told him the truth. Long enough for Karen to notice and decide not to care. That's when I saw something shift in him. He sat in the corner of the room with his hands clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. I should have come home sooner, he whispered. I should have never left you, alone. I wanted to tell him that none of this was his fault. That I was the one who insisted I'd be fine for an hour. That it was just a chair on a sunny porch, not a dangerous mountain cliff. But the words didn't come. Instead, I reached for his hand with my good arm and gave it a squeeze. We sat like that, quiet. Just a mother and her son, both nursing wounds that ran deeper than bruises. When we got home the next day, I wasn't ready for what came next. Taped to our front door was a bright pink HOA violation notice. Violation: improper emergency response, disturbance description, ambulance blocked street access. Please notify HOA in advance of any medical visits to ensure neighborhood order and minimal disruption. I felt like I'd been slapped. My son tore the notice down and crushed it in his fist. This is sick, he muttered. They're not even pretending to care. He was right. It wasn't just Karen anymore. It was the whole culture of this place. The HOA board Karen ran, the fake smiles, the obsession with image over integrity. They wanted everything clean, quiet, perfect. Even if that meant pretending a woman bleeding on her porch didn't exist, I wanted to cry. But the tears wouldn't come. I was too drained. My son turned to me and said something I'll never forget. We're going to make sure people know what happened. No more silence. No more letting her hide behind her perfect lawn and her book club friends. If she thinks this is over, she's wrong. For the first time since the fall, I felt something besides pain. I felt seen, heard, protected. That night my son posted everything, not just what happened to me, but the HOA's notice. He didn't name Karen directly, but everyone in the neighborhood knew. It didn't take long before the comments exploded. People were horrified. Some shared their own experiences, stories of being ignored, belittled, harassed over small things. One neighbor said she was once fined for letting her daughter draw chalk on the sidewalk. Another said Karen reported them for leaving their trash bin out 5 minutes past pickup. And one brave soul wrote, Karen saw my father collapse in his garden last year. She didn't call for help either. He managed to crawl inside and call 911 himself. I thought it was just a one-time thing. I was wrong. It wasn't just me. It never had been. Karen wasn't cold just once. She was always like this. But this time the neighborhood was watching. And they were angry. Very, very angry. By the end of the week, I could barely keep up with the messages. People I barely knew, neighbors I'd only waved to in passing, were knocking on my door, calling, texting, sending food, flowers, and cards. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve that. We had no idea it was this bad, but it was. It had been. For years. I guess I'd just gotten used to it. The cold stares, the passive-aggressive notes, the HOA fines for violations like a wind chime being too loud or a lawn chair being visible from the street. It was always something. But this? Leaving. Someone on the ground, hurt, scared, unable to move, that crossed every line. And now, the whole neighborhood knew. My son had posted our story online, but it wasn't just our neighborhood that saw it. Someone reposted it on a local Facebook group, then Reddit, then Twitter. Suddenly, it wasn't just neighbors reaching out. It was strangers. People from across the country. People who had been hurt, dismissed, ignored. Just like me. One message. Read, my dad fell in our driveway and a neighbor walked right past him. I never forgot that. Another, you're brave for speaking out. What she did was inhuman. But the biggest shock came at the next HOA meeting. Karen was still the president, still smug, still acting like everything was fine, until she walked in and saw how full the room was. Normally, 5 or 6 people showed up to HOA meetings. That night, there were dozens, standing room only, chairs dragged from other rooms, people with arms crossed, eyes fixed on the board. She tried to start the meeting like it was any other. Let's begin by reviewing last month's minutes. But someone interrupted her. Actually, said a man from the back, we need to talk about what happened to Mrs. Langford. The room murmured in agreement. Karen froze. For a moment, I thought she might try to deny it again. Say it was a misunderstanding. Pretend she hadn't heard me calling for help. But she didn't even get the chance. Another neighbor stood up. I've lived here 12 years. I've watched this HOA turn colder and colder. But leaving a neighbor injured? That's it. That's the line. Then another voice. You fined her after she was taken to the hospital. You did that. Someone else read my son's post aloud. Word for word. Karen was pale. She tried to interrupt. This is not relevant to our agenda tonight. But nobody listened. The entire room had turned on her. And then, finally, someone said it. I motioned to remove Karen from the HOA board, effective immediately. There was silence. Then, I second the motion. A vote followed. Rapid hands. Raised. I didn't even have to count. It was unanimous. Karen stood up, face red, trembling with rage. This is ridiculous. I've served this community for years. No, someone replied. You served yourself, and we're done letting you do it. She stormed out without another word. I sat there in the corner, wrapped in a soft blanket, my arm in a sling, watching her walk away. There was no satisfaction in it, no celebration, just relief. The next morning, her for sale sign went up. Whether she left on her own or was pressured to go, I'll never know for sure. But within a week, she was gone. Her driveway empty, her porch abandoned, peaceful. That porch had once felt like a threat. Now it felt like a warning had been lifted. The neighborhood didn't go back to normal. It got better. We started checking in on each other. An elderly man down the street got a new handrail installed after someone noticed he was struggling with his steps. A single mom received help repainting her porch. I got a ramp built for my wheelchair, paid for by a fundraiser my neighbors started without even telling me. It was the first time I truly felt like I lived in a community. One day, a teenage girl from the house across the street came over with a plate of cookies and said quietly, I'm glad she's gone. She made me feel small. You make me feel safe. I cried, not because of the cookies, not because of Karen, but because, for once, I didn't feel invisible. People always say things like, that's not my problem. They use it to keep their distance, to protect themselves from getting involved. But what happens when no one gets involved? What happens when a person lying hurt on the ground becomes someone else's not my problem? You lose more than a neighbor. You lose your humanity. Karen did. But the rest of us? We got it back. I still deal with pain. I still flinch when I hear the word HOA. But I know deep down that something changed. People saw me. And once you're seen, you can't be unseen.